Hi, it's Janet and welcome to my channel. Here you'll find weekly tutorials on card crafting techniques for all levels. I'll show you the basics as well as some of the hottest trends. Like many of you, I've been crafting forever, and now I want to share everything I've learned with you. Join me in the creative process and be inspired in your own projects. In today's episode, I'll show you how I made the first 5 of 10 cards using the July My Monthly Hero Kit. This is a regular monthly feature on my channel, so whether or not you get hero kits, this series will provide you with ideas and inspiration for your own card making. Before I start though, I want to tell you what's coming soon on my channel. I'll be celebrating reaching 1,000 subscribers by doing an exciting giveaway. Look for a contest video in the coming week. Next, I'm celebrating Christmas in July with a hop that ends this Friday night. I invite you to join me and my crafty friends for holiday-themed inspiration. Get motivated to start some holiday projects and qualify for lots of prizes, including 2 for me. Click the link at the top right-hand corner right now to start, or click on the suggested video thumbnail at the end of this video. Last but not least, come create with me. I invite you to post pictures of your own projects using this kit. Just tag me on your photo in Instagram with @SugarshineDesigns or on Facebook with #SugarshineDesigns, and I'll visit to see your creations. I'll choose some of my favorites to show you in the August My Hero 10 Cards videos. This is a new feature, and I know you're going to love the extra ideas and creativity from the crafting community. Okay, that was a lot to share. Thanks for hanging in there with me. The July kit is super cute, and it's called County Fair. It's packed with carnival and fair images and dies. It's a real ride, pun intended. So let's get started. Okay, here's how the kit comes. I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time covering this because you can see lots of other creators out there that do a full unboxing, but this is how the package always comes, wrapped in some tissue. There's usually two envelopes. This month we have 2 ribbons that they've wrapped around it. Occasionally they do give us 2, and this is one of those months, and pretty red and blue, very patriotic red and blue colors. And I'll pull out the packet with a stamp set on one side, and it's sandwiched with a piece of cardstock with an image, which I kind of like that one, and then it's got the dies stuck on the other side. And so I'll probably use this cardstock in one of the cards in the next video. So here is all the stamps, and there's all kinds of sentiments here as well as fun images. There are also several borders this time, and that's kind of fun to have to work with as well. Now let's take a look at the dies. There are 10 smaller dies and then this fancy die. Love this little ticket die. There's so many uses for that one. Now let's look at the smaller packet. This month we get 3 inks and 3 postcards. These postcards are kind of interesting. They're very heavy stock material, really heavy, chipboard almost. These would mail great, and I used one of these in the project that I'm going to show you today. Then there are 3 inks. We've got the navy blue and the red blue, which are reactive inks, and the unicorn white. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is I had to use actually this Ticket to Fun golden ticket. Now I use this kind of matte gold as opposed to the real shiny gold, just for something different. Now I'm going to use an inlay technique and this fancy die. On the backs of these 2 pieces of cardstock, the blue glitter and the red foil, I've applied 2-sided adhesive. Then I ran the fancy die through on both of them, and so I'll get 2 of the same cuts to use in an inlay technique. So here is the first one in the red foil. My 2-sided adhesive didn't quite reach to each edge to edge, so I added a little glue there just to make sure it stayed put. Now here's that blue glitter cardstock that I also cut, and now I'm using the inside pieces, peeling off that adhesive on the back and inlaying it in between the red rays. This is a really easy and clean way to get the look of the glitter in between the rays in this inlaid process. Now I'm going to show you the other inlaid version. The one on the left side that you'll see here has the opposite effect, where the blue are the main rays and the red has been inlaid. I'll use both of these panels to make cards and not waste anything. So I had to use this Ticket to Fun and this here arrow, and I heat embossed them with black ink and clear embossing powder on the golden ticket, and it's black cardstock and gold embossing powder on the arrow. Now the Ticket to Fun, I put 2 layers of foam tape on it, and then the arrow just 1, so that I had a little bit of dimension. And that's really how simple this card was to put together. I felt it did need a little bit of extra something something, so I added some doodads, as I call them, here in the corners. Just 3 brightly colored sequins of different sizes that I thought fit the theme. And that's card number 1. So to start card 2, I stamped and heat embossed these 6, there's actually 6 of the balloon images, and I'm using the reactive ink and a water pen to color these in. And these are very, very small images, so I was curious to see if I could paint them without making a mess, and for the most part I was successful. I did end up just coloring a couple of these all red. I think one was all blue, and then I did a couple that are multicolored. Now I also took out 2 more reactive inks that came in the April kit. Back then we got a Fiesta Teal and a Fiesta Yellow, and so I also put that on my glass mat here. You see that yellow? Now the Fiesta Teal is a little bit too bluish in my opinion, so I used the yellow on top of that to create more of a grass green yellow, which I liked better. All right, and then the last touch here was to use some of the yellow on the baskets. And then I just kept working them over and over again. With the red and the blue, I decided to try to create more dimension by making every other stripe a little bit darker so that they weren't so flat looking, and that did help quite a bit. So this one is also very simple once I had that ready. I had cut out and heat embossed the sentiment that says "Enjoy the ride," and I used the silvery metallic embossing powder that came in the March kit, I believe it was. So I try to use as many of the old pieces that I can, because I figure for many of you who have the subscription, you've got these items anyway, and we might as well take advantage of them. So then once I had completed all of that, it was really very simple to apply my balloons in cluster formations. I have 2 on the left, I'll put 3 on the right, and then to balance it all out, I'll put 1 at the very bottom. So in the end, I used 6 total. 3 of the balloons have double-sided foam tape on it. The blue one on the right side actually has 2 layers of foam tape, and in person this does give the distinct impression that some balloons are closer and some are farther away from you. To finish this card off, I used a little bit of Wink of Stella just here and there on the balloons to again give a little bit more shine and also give some dimension to them. And with that, card number 2 is complete. Now let's look at 1 and 2 together. You can see they're quite different, but yet they are similar, so it was kind of fun to do them both. Now card number 3, I heat embossed a bunch of these fireworks with that silver and metallic embossing powder again. And now I've got a stamped image of the happy birthday sign in the stamp set. Again, what I did here was use black ink and then heat embossed it with clear embossing powder just so that it would hold the water image in a little bit and not bleed as much. That works pretty well to contain it. And then I used the red and the yellow to create the fill-in for the happy. I used a little bit of the yellow and the red on the top to kind of create an orange shading effect with red at the bottom. The card base I'm using for this one came already pre-purchased. I got this pack of card blanks from Joann's. It's Miss Sparkle & Company, which is their brand from Die Cuts with a View, and it's called Confetti Party. And off camera I went ahead and heat embossed these fair images with the stamp set and pulled out this card blank because I thought when I saw it, it looked to me like a perfect backdrop for a carnival or a amusement park scene at night with stars and fireworks on it. So anyway, that's what it said to me when I saw it. Once in a while my stash speaks to me, and this was one of those times. So obviously after I heat embossed the images, I cut them out using the included dies, and they really cut nice, very nice. Now I did have to fancy cut the fireworks images, but that wasn't hard. The only thing that I wish they would have included is another fireworks image that was just a little bit bigger. I had to do with all of them being the same size. And you kind of adjust that by clustering them together to create a bigger image. But it would have been really fun to have one larger image and then this size as well. And I did put one off the edge and cut it off. And then I applied a few gemstones here and there just to add a bit of color, just a pop here and there, like I said. I really loved how this one turned out. In fact, I think this one's my favorite. I'd love to know which one is your favorite. And that is card number 3. On to card number 4. Now here, as I promised, I used one of those postcards, and I'm using the border that's L-shaped, and half of it is getting the blue ink, half of it red ink, and then I just lightly touch dry cloth where the two colors meet to eliminate the hard line of the two inks coming together. And so I did the very same thing on the bottom corner again with the red and then the blue, and just blending it a little bit in the corners. And this creates a nice little border for the scene that I'm going to do. Now what you see here are 2 masks that I made using the die set and stamps, and I use Zig 2-way glue, let them dry, and that way they become sticky. I want to do just flat scenes on this card because I do intend to mail it. So first goes the snack shop, then I'm going to apply the mask over the top of that after I clean this stamp up, of course. And then of course the mask will allow me to stamp the next image without ruining that image. So I'll pick that up on my stamp press and apply that, just overlapping the snack shop a little bit. When I peel off the mask, you'll see that I have 2 nice images clustered together. Now for the carousel mask, I'll repeat the same process, only using the Ferris wheel this time. My little mask came off, so I got to put that back on before I stamp it. By the way, I save my masks. I apply them to wax paper and put them in with my stamp set, and that way they're available the next time I want to use them. The next couple steps I'm going to do here is apply the plane with the banner behind it, and going to again just use black ink and stamp that. And then after that I'm going to go ahead and apply the sentiment which says, "You make the world go round." But for that I'm going to go ahead and use a red, that red ink, so I do get a little bit more color in here. As I mentioned, the ink cubes are reactive ink, and the blue and the red are both very vibrant, and so they work nicely on this dark craft cardstock. I used the blue to put in the clouds, and in the finished product you can definitely tell the blues and the reds. It's a little bit hard to pick up in the video, but it's actually fairly colorful compared to how it looks here on the video version of it. So I wanted to put a few clouds in there to balance everything out. I did apply my sentiment just maybe a little lower than I wanted to. It was hard to see with the glare of my lighting with the camera, but it was okay. And then the last thing here is to put in the sentiment. I almost put that in backwards. That wouldn't have been good. So fortunately I caught that in time. And then the last thing I'm going to do, or one of the last things I'm going to do, is apply some glitter drops. Now this is Nouveau glitter drops in Dazzling Blue, and it's quite obvious that I applied the bottom left-hand corner crooked, and I'll talk to you about that and how I corrected it later. But in addition to that, I also used Silver Moon Dust to put in a few glitter drops there, and then I used Wink of Stella to fill in the clouds. And the Wink of Stella on that dark craft paper is really quite pretty. It makes the clouds look actually pretty cloud-like. I like the result of that quite well. Then I applied a couple of gemstones on the carousel and the Ferris wheel. I just simply let them dry, then I took my craft knife and kind of carefully peeled them off. You can tell a little bit that the surface was disturbed on the cardstock, but it's really not bad at all. And I was very pleased with the result of that, and it sure looks a lot better now that it's straight. And that completes card 4. Card 5 uses one of the card blanks again from the Miss Sparkle set, and I've die cut an oval through that to create a window. Then I cut a slightly larger scallop piece out of black cardstock, and now reapplying that same oval die that I cut the window in the card and cut the black cardstock. So that creates a little frame for the window on the front of the card. This is nice because it fits perfectly, and it gives the window just a little bit of emphasis so that it stands out. Next, I've stamped the roller coaster on this red cardstock with Versamark ink and applied white embossing powder, and I'm heating it up. I always like how miraculous it always is when you use the heat gun on it. It's amazing, isn't it? Anyway, so when that's done, I wipe off the excess powder that I applied with my embossing buddies so that it's a nice red again. And you see how it's going to go underneath my window. I'm going to use some more embossing powder, and then I'm going to apply the sentiment, and I'm using the Versamark ink again. This sentiment says, "I'm here for you through the ups and downs," which fits perfectly, of course, with the roller coaster. And I'm heat embossing this one with gold embossing powder. And I'm using a detail embossing powder. I try to use the detail style of powder for all sentiments because it just comes out a lot cleaner and neater and you can read it better. Once again, I wiped off and used an eraser to get the excess powder off. And now I'm going to color one of the elements that's going to sit actually on the outside of the card on top of the window. This is that carousel, I'm sorry, not carousel, it's the Ferris wheel image. And I'm going to use, once again, the 4 reactive inks, the Fiesta Green and the Fiesta Yellow from the April kit, and then of course the blue and the red that came in this month's July kit. Same technique, I'm just using a water brush, picking up a little bit of the ink with my very fine tipped brush here and applying it directly onto the image. And every other color I'm using, so it works out that every other color is the green, the blue, the yellow, and the red. And in the center I'm using both the green and the yellow together to get a different hue of green. And then I'm going to apply a red gemstone approximately the same size as that center in the Ferris wheel. And then I decided to also add some crystal drops in liquid mercury at the top of each of the cars on the Ferris wheel to give it a little bit of a metallic finish at each of these cars. Very minor and tiny detail. It doesn't show up that great here in the video, but it actually is pretty cool in person. So if you haven't figured this out, I'm making a shaker window. So I've applied the acetate here on the top with wet glue. And then I'm going to go ahead and use this very thin double-sided foam tape from Derice. I'm not sure if it's made really specifically for shakers, but crafters have certainly adopted it for that if it wasn't intended for it, and it just really nicely fits around any kind of curved image because it is so narrow, and that means it's pliable. Now inside I start applying my shaker elements, and these are just multicolored bright sequins in various sizes. I'm adding foam tape now around the shaker window because I need to make sure that the surrounding area is the same height as the well that I've created for the shaker, and this will do the trick for me. Now the nice thing about using this Scotch foam tape is that it's not very deep or high, and it actually is pretty comparable to the Derice double-sided foam tape I've used here. But the fact that it's not very thick means that I can apply the backing to the shaker and still be able to close this card without any problem. I love the wordplay on this because it's not only going up and down because of the rides, but also the shakers going up and down, those shaker elements. The whole thing is just cute. Now I'm bringing back in the Ferris wheel just to sit at the front of the card in front of the window, and then I'm adding some of that red ribbon that came in the kit. I created a medium-sized bow, and I'm just going to attach that with some glue dots, and that is going to finish card number 5. Well, that does it for me in this video. I'll be back again with 5 more cards from the July kit. I hope you enjoyed our time together. If you did, please give me a thumbs up, comment, and don't forget to subscribe. I've also put a link to a few other of my videos here that you might want to check out. Well, I'll see you soon, but until then, keep crafting. Bye.